Welcome to the Voice of MPE, part of the MPE Talks series. So Claire and myself are here today to talk about people in payments. MPE launched people in payments back in 2019. And every year in Berlin, on the main stage as part of the main agenda, MPE has had a panel discussing people and talent in the payments industry. And this is really fantastic because at conferences and events, very often we get to talk about innovation, technology, product, go to market, but very rarely do we actually get time dedicated to talking about the people and talent required to execute effectively on those initiatives. And the feedback from both attendees and sponsors alike has been fantastic. And that's what sort of led us to curate this series of 5 short video podcasts where we're digging into the topic of people and talent in payments. And the first one that we're discussing today is, what are the top skills, the top attributes, capabilities that we should be thinking about and leaning into as we think about developing and expanding our careers within the sector. Now, we could be talking today about regulation and compliance and the importance of knowing that. We could be talking about cybersecurity and the expertise we might need in that area, about product development, business strategy, AI, or even data analysis. Those are all really super important, but actually, Claire and I wanted to talk on some broader themes. And so we're going to lean into those now. But Claire, before we start, maybe you could just sort of spend a moment introducing yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Simon. So just to pick up actually on what you were saying in that intro, I do think the MPE team, each year they try and evolve and develop this programme. And you're absolutely right. We look back a few years ago, it started as a panel on stage. And then last year, I know that we had some breakout sessions, we had some round tables looking at this. So they have definitely evolved the scope of this subject. And that has been as a result of feedback, like you say, from sponsors and attendees. So I'm super happy to be involved with this again. My name is Claire Maslen, and I'm an independent advisor and consultant in the payment space, looking really at mobile payments, digital wallets, and the intersection with identity as well, because that's obviously super interesting topic. And Simon, for many, many years, I've been really interested in the development of people, the development of teams. I've been very lucky. I've worked with some fantastic leaders. And, I think sharing some of those learnings and some of those experiences and what's worked and what's not worked at a very practical level is actually, those are some of the conversations that we've had from attendees in Berlin the last few years.
No, wonderful. Thank you. And just to introduce myself, my name is Simon Stokes, and I'm Group Chief Commercial Officer with the Conexus Group. And we focus on iGaming and gaming sector and the fintech and payment sector. And within that, we provide recruitment, consultancy, advisory, and M&A services. So anyway, let's get kicking off with our first topic here. So that is about the importance of knowing your sector. And that's beyond the scope of just your own company and your own products and services. And Claire, maybe you can talk to this a bit from your own experience. Why is it important to know your sector, and what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you keep abreast of the sector happenings?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, Simon, it's when you're in a product environment or a platform environment, it's very easy to kind of put your head down, focus very much internally. And actually, if you can take an external perspective, I think it adds credibility to your experience. You can talk more broadly, and also you're looking constantly for signals and trends, things that are happening, more broadly. And when we talk about payments, as a sector, it's huge and it touches all manner of industries, all different technologies and different regulatory bodies even. So I do think staying abreast of all of that it's going to help your career and help your visibility. How do I go about it? Well, obviously attending fantastic events like MPE, and, I mean, that might sound a bit glib, but actually you can attend those events, and it's not just about networking or understanding other products. It's understanding kind of the nuanced things that are happening. So I think events are really important. Networking forums are really important. And then, you can't go wrong with listening to podcasts and reading as well, reading up on material. And I think some of the trade associations that work across our industries are really key for that. So I would certainly advise people to get involved in some of those initiatives.
No, wonderful. And I think yeah, because I think for me, it's because you're right that there is so much to digest. There's so many different sort of publications, trade associations. Literally every day, there's many, many different topics and things that you could sort of dig into. In fact, you could spend your whole day just trying to keep up to date with sector happenings rather than actually doing your job. But I always try and set aside at the beginning of the day a sort of cup of coffee, half an hour, and skim through what's going on. I also have a folder in my inbox that I put all of the communications coming in from different publications. So I get sort of like daily feeds coming into my inbox. I put that into a folder and then I sort of digest it every day. And you've got sort of publications, got a couple of them written down here, like, sort of MRC, Pay360, Vendorcom, but you've got Finextra, which comes out every day, a couple of times a day, Payments Dive. So I think it's really good to do your research, find the sort of publications and news channels in the sector that are most of interest to you, cover the topics and areas that you're interested in, subscribe to them, get them delivered to your inbox, and set aside some time every day to read them.
Yeah, I think those kind of taking it in bite-sized chunks, because actually, as you say, there's so much out there. You don't want to boil the ocean and end up not being able to digest any of it. So, and I think it's similar with, it's just like us with normal media outlets, isn't it? There are things that we have individual preferences of how we consume all of this information. I would say don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn. There's a ton of stuff that is available on there if you get subscribed to the right groups. And also, I would encourage people to actually build up a conversation. If they find interesting material and topics, don't be afraid to comment on LinkedIn and start building out a conversation. I think that's really valuable as well.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. And on that, so the question of why, last point from me on this topic actually, but why is it important to know your sector more broadly than your own sort of company and your own products and services? And that's to be able to build a narrative to your point, Claire. So it's important that we can talk to different parts of the sector that we're involved in, the subsectors and adjacent complementary sectors and so on, but also how everything sort of knits together, because it does. And actually, sort of convenient outcome of that is that you might begin to find more partnership opportunities and business opportunities for your product, for your brand, for the company that you work for. So I think building that narrative, having a voice. I love what you were saying there about using social channels like LinkedIn to sort of enable you to amplify that. All of those are really good points. So we better move on to our second topic, Claire.
Sure. So I'm actually going to mix the topics up in terms of order, because I think we've just left a really interesting part there, Simon, about networking.
Fantastic.
Networking and social networking and networking in person. So, from your perspective, do you find that the power of face-to-face networking is more successful for you than social media? How do you get the best from both of those opportunities.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it is a balance. And, essentially I'm a sales guy. So if I can, that's all about relationship. And if I can meet people face to face, then I will always jump at that opportunity over a video conference or a call or whatever, because you just get that sort of like read, and, the chemistry to build, and develop relationships. So I think meeting people and networking in person is my preferred path. But of course, there are limitations to that. How many people can you meet in a day and have conversations with when you're in person? Now, if you go to an event, that's fantastic. You can sort of like accelerate and sort of network on steroids. But also there is a balance. And so connecting people through LinkedIn is a great method of doing that. There are other sort of channels and social media elements to add to that. I think these sort of Instagrams and so on. I don't use X, but again, sort of Twitter X is another way of being seen and put your voice out there. But I cannot underestimate the importance of networking and spending time in your working week to connect with new people and have conversations with new people.
So my lens might be slightly different because obviously, as many people know, I spend my time between the Middle East and between the UK. So actually for me, I tend to do a lot of my networking online. I think also the other lens to put on this, and throughout this series, we're going to be tackling different topics, and we will talk about diversity and inclusion and other initiatives and things to support people's careers. But there are differences from a behavioural perspective with individuals. So some people, Simon, you've mentioned you're a salesperson. You love being in a room with people and interacting, and that's what you want to do. For someone like myself, who's naturally perhaps a bit more introverted, actually, COVID was fantastic because I was behind a screen and I was able to do all of my interactions behind a screen. So perhaps for me, there is a learning that I need to do a bit more of a balance in that. But I think when you travel, the social media platforms, and it does give you that opportunity to talk to anyone, anywhere in the world. Yeah. So I think that there are tools and techniques, and I would absolutely advocate anyone who is watching this who perhaps hasn't got to grips fully with how to operate within the certain algorithms online, spend some time, invest in that, and then you will get the best out of those platforms.
Yeah, and there's great points, Claire. And as you see, that connection between sort of knowing your sector and networking are really sort of closely linked. So when you're trying to sort of expand your horizons, think about new areas of the sector that you want to find out more about, sort of linking in with people, finding people at conferences to go and have a conversation with. I mean, that's all about sort of expanding your horizons, increasing your knowledge and understanding of how the sector knits together, because it is a complicated one as we keep going back to. So important to network and find different ways of doing that. Maybe we move on to another topic, which is it's not so much sort of connected to the networking side, but more about sort of how we create a strong sector profile and shop window for ourselves. So in a way, it is important, and it is linked to that networking side. Thinking about, how do people see me as an individual within the sector, as it were? So, I could be Simon Stokes, who is out there on my own with my own profile, or I could be Simon working for Conexus Group in the role that I have there, representing the products and services that I have. And I think it's important to have both. You aren't your company, and your company isn't you. You need to have your own perspectives and your own path. So could you maybe share with the audience and the listeners just a little bit about that, how you have gone about building your sector profile and the shop window?
Sure. Okay. So again, from my perspective, obviously traveling a lot, most of it is done, online. I think for me, a number of years ago, I was told, I needed to basically start writing. So everyone knows that, we all have opinions. And for me, putting those opinions out there, I kind of shied away from it. I was fine, talking in a small group, but I felt nervous about putting those opinions out there. And there's one of our fantastic ambassadors and guys in the industry, I won't name him, but, I posted something on, actually it was on Twitter many years ago, and another person in the industry had commented on it. And the comment made me want to take my post down. And the person that I was with just said, this is great. At least they're talking. So I think you have to, one, get started. So start writing stuff, start posting stuff, be a bit more confident about your own narrative. And two, actually, it doesn't matter. As long as you're not saying anything outrageously, controversial, I think a lot of us, we should have our own opinions on particular topics. And Simon, if you go back to when we first met at MP, probably 3 years ago now, you were doing the panel on people in payments, and the conversation had led down to the path around education and university and graduates. Yeah. And as you and I both know, we didn't come through that traditional education path. I am very, very passionate about social mobility. So from that one conversation that you and I had, I found a level of confidence to start talking more broadly about diversity and inclusion. For me, I had previously been associated with the gender debate and gender discussion, but I think that I used our conversation as a springboard to actually start talking more and more about social mobility and the diversity of talent that you can get from all walks of life. So yes, I think that for me has become a personal topic. It doesn't take away from the fact that I still talk about wallets and identity and smart mobility. But my personal topic it's spread from just being a gender debate to a broader diversity and inclusion debate.
No, fantastic. And I think if you're comfortable with it, I would sort of make this statement, which is, be seen, be visible. There is power in personalization. And so think about that again through two lenses. So one is sort of like your external profile. So sort of what you're commenting on, reposting on, liking, et cetera, sort of in the sort of public domain outside of your organization. I think it's also important to build a profile and have a shop window for yourself within your organization. Mm-hmm. And we've both worked for some quite significantly large global organizations. And sometimes it can be quite difficult to go, hey, I want to be seen. I want to be noticed. I want to have a voice. I want to increase my contribution. And so sort of finding ways of doing that. So, increasing your organization's understanding of you and being sort of noticing you and so on.
Finding a sponsor. Exactly. Finding a sponsor internally that will help champion you and also your cause. So, I'm sure over many years, Simon, you've had sponsors that have helped you navigate an issue internally within a business. But it's also really important to have a sponsor to help you, springboard your personality and your skills and behaviors within a wider organization.
And if by magic, that's just moving on to our final topic, which is about mentors and sponsors. And we can maybe touch on that very briefly. So why is it important to have mentors and sponsors in the sector? So could you maybe share a few experiences yourself Claire, in terms of how you've used mentors and sponsors?
Okay. So for me, I've had formal mentoring schemes where actually as a person in industry, we've gone out to grassroots projects in local communities to help young people. Because, Simon, who left school or who left university saying, I want to go into payments? I don't know anyone. So, when I left school, of course, I knew vaguely there was this thing called technology and vaguely there was a sector called retail, and we knew about telecoms operators. But within all of that, there are so many different roles and obviously those subsectors. So I think some of those grassroots mentoring schemes are really, really useful for people coming into the early stage of their careers. But actually, if you can become a mentor to a young person, I would challenge anyone not to learn more themselves. You learn from being a mentor. Have you sponsored anyone, Simon? I know we've spoken about us being sponsored, but have you helped sponsor people internally as well?
Yes, I have. Yes, in different roles. And it's been sort of sometimes sponsor, sometimes a bit of coaching, but sponsoring in terms of helping people with their career path, sponsoring them sort of up the organization, encouraging them to have sort of skip level meetings is very important. So meet your boss's boss, get known sort of in the sort of higher echelons of the organization if you can. I think sponsors internally are super important. I think external mentors are helpful because they bring in neutrality to the conversation, the dialogue. I personally have benefited most from female mentors, and we were having this conversation, and I think, Claire, it was the reverse for you. So,
and I think that's human nature. And again, it comes back to that diversity topic. If we bring different perspectives. So I think if you by all means have a male sponsor, female mentor, male mentor, female sponsor, other way around, whichever way around you have it. But I think it's really good to get different perspectives. And just the final point I was going to say on this, Simon, is, later in your career, you might think, actually, mentoring, I've been there, done that. No, we need mentors to help us handle different topics at different stages in our careers as well.
Yeah,
I think
very good point.
That gives a different lens to it.
Right. Well, look, we're coming into land now. Final thing. We said that we would leave the video podcast with sort of giving one bit of encouragement or advice. What would that be, Claire, from your side?
Okay. So from my side, obviously, number one is come to MPE, come to the clinics that we're going to be running and the round tables, because you will have an opportunity to meet like-minded people who want to encourage and support and help other people fathom out these issues. If you're not coming to MPE, I would say absolutely invest time every day in building your connections and really trying to have those you called it a great phrase, skip level meetings, skip level connections. Don't just be limited by the level that sits above you, because you will learn more by understanding the motivation of, those further up the chain.
Lovely. And from my side, it was when it's sort of aligned to your career and your career journey, be flexible, experiment, and be open to taking the odd risk. So that's my point of encouragement for you. So that's we're going to close our first video podcast. That's the Voice of MPE, part of MPE Talks. We are going to be doing another in the series of 5 coming up shortly, and that's about creating and showcasing your personal industry profile. So please do join us for that.
Excellent. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.